Good evening, everybody. It's Richard Bowser here from Property Investor News. Good registrations for this one. I'm not surprised because David Kemp always draws a good audience. David Kemp is our only speaker tonight, our only presenter, because this is a really good story, as I'm sure those of you who have read the recent magazine articles about this particular project would appreciate. Just going to run through a few thoughts of mine on the marketplace, where we're at, where we might be going a little bit. Nothing too complicated, because really want to stick to the theme of tonight's talk, which is about this scheme and the planning aspects to it, which, as I said, fleshes out what we've covered previously in the magazine. How to add 10 million of value with planning. That's what tonight's webinar is all about. You know, this one relates to planning. The detail really matters. We've been publishing Property Investor News now for 20 years, and I can honestly say in that entire period, it's the lack of detail that people don't want to get into that tends to cause problems. They're not prepared to take it seriously enough. So it's about absorbing, it's about adapting, and then prospering. So for those of you who are guests on tonight's webinar who are not subscribed to Property Investor News, we launched it almost 20 years ago in 2002. It's not get rich quick. It's all about serious market analysis, interviews with proven investors, landlords, small-scale developers, and trade professionals. That's what we do. It's about strategies and investing trends. It's not so much on the practical side of build. It's much more about the investment side of property investing. So we offer the monthly magazine in print. We offer the website Article Archive, which has now got well over 16,000 articles embedded in it, all searchable by keyword and by topic. So there's a huge amount of content there. You can also access, as a subscriber, the monthly webinars. I think we did 8 last year. All of the webinars are recorded. Subscription, for those of you who don't know, it's £8.95 a month. First issue is complimentary, minimum period of 12 months, and you get all of the content that I've just mentioned. Let's now, hopefully, David Kemp should be with us. David, are you there?
Hi, Richard.
Good. And I'm going to hand over.
Great, fantastic. Thanks very much, Richard, and good evening to everyone joining us this evening. So the subject of my talk is going to be based on a case that we recently got through planning, and we did it by a number of stages, and there are a lot of lessons to take from it. And for those who are looking at planning and planning gain as a strategy to add value, you'll find this particularly interesting, not just in terms of how to or where to add value in a project, but also where to save costs as well. So it's looking at it both sides in order to work on the profit side of your projects. So what we're going to do is I'll just give you a little bit of a background about our practice and our experience. Then I'll take you through what the site is, where it was, what the key issues were, and then I'll wrap up with, if you're interested in learning more, how to work with us. So let's look at the site itself. Just going to take a sip of water, excuse me. So this site is in North London, London Borough of Barnet. It's a former church hall site. You'll see the aerial photo of it. That's the small single-storey building in the middle of the site. There's a school on the left-hand side, housing behind. It fronts a main road. It's only about 800 yards away from the edge of the town centre. And then it's got rows of semi-detached houses off to the right-hand side. And we've got quite a lot of parking spaces on that site as well. So being a community use, it fell into what was use class D1. I think that would now fall under use class F1 if it was still in community use. So that's relevant to some of the issues that we had to face. So in terms of the principal planning challenges that we faced, there are a number of things that we had to engage with and think about at an early stage. First of all, being in a community uses are generally protected in policy terms. So normally you would find that most local authorities have planning policies that say you have to advertise the community use for a period of time, usually 12 to 18 months, before you can move it to a residential use. Also, The the community hall, I should say, was a community hall in use by the church, which was on the other side of the road. And you wouldn't have seen it in the shot that I presented before, but there was a need for a replacement facility for the church. So we were trying to leverage that by saying, well, actually, they don't need this facility any longer. How did that impact upon our strategy? How did we work with that? Also, the scale and size of development when you're doing a knockdown and rebuild is important. Obviously, we want to try to make the most use of that site. There was quite a lot of space, as you could see, around the site in terms of spare parking, and therefore that was an ideal opportunity to try and intensify the use on the site. It's in a fringe town centre, fringe residential area, so you've got the impact on neighbours and the adjacent school to think of, as well as traffic and parking, and obviously amenity and dwelling mix, as well as affordable housing still in section 106. They all play their part. So the first thing that we had to look at was the issue of replacing a community use. So church halls, which were in class D1, now they are in class F2B. There are some community uses where actually in F1, so it's got split between F1 and F2B. But church halls now fall into class F2B, and there are no PD rights to go from class F to other uses, such as to other commercial uses or to residential. Also, as I say, you'll find that there are local plan policy restrictions if you get stuck in a community use, you get stuck in F2B. You can't avail yourself of any PD rights, and you'll often find that you have to undertake some effective marketing for 12 months. So you have to put it on the open market for a period of time, and that can be obviously very frustrating and increase the risks that you might not be able to prove the principle of change of use to residential. Also, there was the issue here of whether or not we could merely move to residential by saying, well, actually, the church doesn't need it anymore. They're actually looking at building their own replacement facility right next to the church on the other side of the street. And therefore, can't we just walk away from community use and not have to undertake the effective marketing? So sometimes the fact that there's a replacement facility being provided will help you to get around those local plan policy restrictions, but sometimes it's not as easy as it may first seem. And behind that point is that whatever happens in planning, because there are many twists and turns to planning, you want to, wherever you are faced with a choice of which way to go, which path to take, you want to try to control the destiny of your project as much as you can. So obviously with 12 months marketing, there's no control over the market demand for non-residential uses. But the other problem here is that if we were then to take the other route to try to use the replacement facility argument, the difficulty here is that the council didn't have a replacement facility ready. They were operating another application for planning permission to get permission for a new building on their site. So until that building has got planning permission and they've secured that planning permission and they have almost effectively built it, made it ready for use, it can be very difficult for most local authorities to actually be then given the permission to build for residential on your own site. So on our site, we would have been completely locked into the fate of what happened on the site on the other side of the road.
From David Kemp at the Arcade Planning. Detail, it really, really matters, doesn't it? I mean, that there was some absolute little nuggets there to hook into. So David Kemp and all of you, thanks for attending tonight. Look forward to catching up with you again on a future webinar. And that's it. Thank you and good night.